Let's now add one more command into the birthday book so that we have the ability to insert into the birthday book. So let's go under the feature, let's call it commands rather than a singular. So why don't we add just after the make empty command, right? But the add is not going to be used as a constructor. Only the make empty will be used as a constructor. So let's say add over here. And what do we want to add? Every time you want to add a new record into the birthday book, for example, let's say we already got 3 records, we may want to add Jim and also his birthday. So there'll be 2 pieces of information we would like to add. So over here it should be some new name and also new birthday, right? Remember, we cannot clash with the variables in the class. Okay, I think name should be okay because we only got names over here, so the name wouldn't clash. So we can say name of type string over here. And also we can say birthday over here, and then that will be of type birthday. Okay, and then always first start with the comments just to document the purpose of this particular command. We can say adds a new record with name and birthday. Let me just say again, it would be very nice whenever you do your own comments over here, if you want to mention about the parameter, for example, the name and also the birthday over here, it's good to backquote. You can see it will appear a little bit differently. And later on, if you want to generate documentation, like how you generate Java doc in Apple Studio, the name and birthday in backquotes will be shown differently. So that's can give you more professional documentation. So adds a new record with name and also birthday. So what should be the precondition, right? So before we dive into the actual implementation, which is quite easy because we only want to insert just to the end of the array and also the linked list. But now what should be the precondition here? Apparently how we did it for the birthday. The precondition you want to think about is, for example, you shouldn't really execute the command so that you will actually violate the class invariants, for example, right? So now, is it possible for us to violate this particular no duplicates name class invariance by adding something? Well, it might be, for example, if somehow we allowed to actually add a new record over here, let's say hypothetically, let's say if I simply allow to add a new record over here with the name, let's say Alan. You can see Alan and Alan exist twice in the birthday book. In that case, it will lose its purpose for being a search key. So now in that case, that will violate the class invariant. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure the name that we want to add into the birthday book does not exist in the birthday book. So how do we do it? Let me write the simplest way possible, and then I'll also show you the alternative of using the across. Okay, I'll show you both versions. So first of all, let's do require. So that will be always you should still put a do, even though we'll delay the implementation writing later. So now what should be the precondition over here? So apparently the name should not have existed yet. Okay, it should be a new name. So we can say non-existing. If you actually have to design the name of the tag, just give something that's informative enough. So any external viewer seeing your class in the contract view, they will be able to get a sense about what should be the valid input constraint for your team. Okay, so non-existing name, because we want to make sure the name does not already exist in the names array, and we know from before the query that we can use, right? So the one I'm going to use will be has. Okay, so contains, right? It's about the has. And for those of you who really study carefully, you kind of know whenever we want to query about a membership, like using has and also occurrences, what's the catch, right? What should you pay attention to? If you have some answer there, maybe keep it to yourself just for now. We might need it. But if you're not too sure what I'm talking about, so you may want to review the previous video. You missed some very important points, okay, about querying the membership. Not just for array, but for any collection type. So let me go back here, and then let's say this. Non-existing name, it should be as easy as, so we should be the names array dot has name, and it should not be the case, right? If the name actually already exists, in that case, if we still add it, it's gonna lose its search purpose. So we'll say it's not the case. So we'll simply say that. So we are now done with the precondition for this add command. according to test-driven developments, whenever your code becomes executable, you should really test by starting writing a test. So can we actually write a precondition violation test for this case over here? I would say in this case, no, but in general, you should really try. But in this case, the reason why it is not possible is because when you actually create an empty birthday book, is it possible to really try to add a name that already exists? It's not possible, right? Because empty array names actually always does not contain anything. So there's no way to add something that already exists. So in order to, so this is kind of like a special case. So we cannot just test with the precondition alone in this case. So what we should do instead is really to add some implementation quickly, because they are quite easy to write for this add command, so that we can write the precondition test together with the Boolean test case for the implementation. So now let's see how we can add some new implementation over here. The implementation will be very straightforward. In order for me to add, for example, a new record, I'll simply add a new name to the end, and also I will add a new birthday at the end over here. That's what I will do. Okay. So now how do we do it? We learned in the previous video how we can do such commands for arrays and linked lists, how to extend to the end or how to force to the end, right? So let's do it together. So you can say names dot is an array, so we're going to say force. And remember, the first argument should be the value, and then what about index? It should be the current size of the array plus 1. Okay, and I already explained the rationale for this. You can refer to the previous video for doing this. So I can say names.count plus 1. And then what about the birthdays? It's actually a linked list, so force cannot be usable. So we should say birthdays dot extend. And now what should I extend? I should extend the birthday to the end. Okay, just make sure everything compiles over here. Okay, that's very good. So now what I would like to do is I would like to write a precondition test. How about this? And then I'll write an implementation test. I'll do one at a time. In order to create a test, let's see the under the clusters. So under the cluster tests over here, so we don't have a class called test birthday book. Let's create it. So click on the tests cluster, and then let's create a class. Let's call that test underscore birthday underscore book. And then because it's a test class, so it really should inherit from, again, if you actually have this, you should really try to compile or recompile from scratch. We can do that if a problem occurs. Okay, let's now do the following. So this class is going to inherit from ES test over here. And then we have to make sure we have a constructor called make. We'll do that. And also feature. And then every test will be added to the constructor. So add test over here. And then we can say make is going to be the command. We can add Boolean case. We can add violation case later. Okay, let's now start with just violation test, just for now. And then we'll add a Boolean case later. Violation tests. Okay, so let's name it, let's say T underscore precondition test. And then let's say for the add command over here. And always remember, oh, by the way, so here, it should be a command rather than test query, because we do expect some violation to occur with a particular tag. So always remember to actually put a comment over here, and then let's say, let me just copy the name of the command, and then say T command pre, okay, and then we say test the precondition of add with an existing name. Okay, let's see how we can do it. Hey, in order to do it, we have to have a local variable to manipulate the birthday book. So local, so BB birthday book. That's how we declare local variable. And then let's create first of all empty book. Create BB dot make empty. Okay, create an empty book, and now we want to add the first record. Let's say BB dot add. Okay, let's say we simply say Alan. Okay, so now how can we add a birthday? You have two choices, and let me show you both. First of all, you can either declare the birthday over here. I would say BD for birthday, right? And then let's say, let me be consistent with what I said before. It should be Alan September 14th, right? So now I can say creates over here birthday. Well, actually, the dynamic type is actually the same, so I don't need that. So I can say bd dot make September and 14th. That's absolutely fine. And then we can say bd over here and make sure everything compiles. That's very good. And now another way to do it, let's say you don't want to go through the trouble of declaring just a new local variable name. Let's say you want to create the objects anonymously without a name. So this one I'm going to comment it out. Okay, you can actually use it if you wish. But now here I'm going to use anonymous objects, which we discussed previously. I can say create over here. Now I need to mention birthday dot make September 14th. Okay, so if you are curious about how to do anonymous objects, please refer to the previous video. I did talk about it when I talk about how you can create new objects. Okay, so do we expect the precondition violation to occur? Well, it depends on whether Alan already exists in the empty book. Alan, actually not just Alan, any name actually does not exist in the empty array. So this one here actually is fine, right? It will only be a precondition violation if the name already exists in the array. So let me just write it down here. Precondition not expected here because Alan does not exist in empty book. It's a little bit long, but you can break it down yourself, okay? Okay, so we can do another one over here. This one is something that can trigger a precondition violation if everything works. Otherwise, there's some problem for our precondition. So bb.add over here, let me try to do Alan again. Okay, let's say another Alan. Okay, and then here I can just do another anonymous object here. I can say create birthday, the type dot make. That's a different Alan. So what about simply April 23rd? Okay, and let's make sure everything compiles. Okay, and now don't forget to include this particular feature in for execution for the test. Okay, so now we'll say, let me just put the comments here, violation tests. Okay, and then add control space, add violation case with tag. So what tag do we expect to see? So now let's just see that. Let me open a new tab, birthday book. And then I'm talking about the add command, right? Okay, this is the tag I'm expecting. So let me just copy that. Let me go back to the test over here. Let me paste. So this is the tag I'm expecting to be violated. And then don't forget, you gotta say agents, and then t underscore precon add. Okay, so everything is good over here. And we now want to see whether we will get a precondition violation as expected. So we would say run over here, and then run workbench system. We got a green bar, but does that really mean we are good? Do we have the test birthday book class over here? Doesn't seem like we do, right? We got test library, we got test birthday, but how weird. Why is this particular test birthday book not appearing in the HTML report? Why is that? Okay, hopefully you have figured that out. So what we should have done is we should have gone to the root class over here, and then we should include it over here. Okay, so every time you add a new test command or query, you should add it to the constructor. For add boolean case or add violation case. And every time you add a new test class, like a test birthday book, you should go back to the root class and add it. So don't forget these steps. Okay, so what we want to do is, let's say, simply put it here. Okay, I can put it first. Actually, it doesn't matter. Okay, maybe first, last in first. Let's do a stack. So add test over here, and then we'll say create. This is also anonymous type, by the way. So here we can say test birthday book dot make. Let's compile, and then let's see what we get. We actually get a red bar, and the good thing is the test birthday book is actually appearing over here. It is there. Okay, and what we get is a class invariant violation. Let's see why we actually got such class invariant violation. We expected a precondition violation to occur, but we actually got a class invariant violation. But why is that? So let's now go back to iPhone Studio, and what we will do is we're going to say run, so we can see the stack trace to see how it led to such class invariant violation. So we're going to say run over here, And then we're going to look at the stack trace. So look at the third last item over here. So that's where we call this particular violation test, right? However, notice one thing. Notice where the yellow arrow over here is pointing to the first call to the add. This actually is not where we expected the precondition violation to occur, right? We expected the second one to actually got a precondition violation because the first one, we're only adding Alan into an empty birthday book. Of course, Alan doesn't exist. So that's not where we should expect any violation to occur, but some violation occur. So there's something wrong over here, okay? And now we can see the next item in the stack trace. If you look at add, so you can see somehow the execution for add went through the precondition. It also went through all the implementation. So what does that mean? That means if you look at the objects panel over here, the arguments name and birthday over here is the Alan and also the birthday, right? The birthday was the September 14th. If I just remind you very quickly, remember that was the very first birthday that we wanted to add, okay? So now I'm just trying to exercise in front of you how you're supposed to use the debugger to figure out what's going on. It's really hard to teach you precisely, but I can just give you example of how to use it. Okay, just watch, pay attention to what I'm trying to, how I reason. So now if I go back to the add over here, so now at this point, so we meant to add Alan and also September 14th into the birthday book. And since like we have already extended names and birthday, let's confirm. If you look at the names, you can see the upper and lower is simply just one. And if you want to look at the contents, you can see simply just Alan, right? So that one's good. And then you can also do one thing here. So now since we are in the context of birthday book, so we can say names.count over here is going to give us 1. Again, if you don't have this watch panel over here, you can use the magical sequence. You can go to the view towards layout and also reset towards layout to see the watch panel, right? It's really important for you to use the debugger. Okay, so now names.count is actually 1. That's good. What about birthdays? So birthdays is the linked list. If you expand it, you have to expand the link structure. So the first element is the first node, and the item of that is simply a birthday, right? So now September and 14 seems to be added, not a problem. So now if I try something here, birthdays dot count is actually 1. Okay, so far so good. And then somehow violation, well, something got interrupted over here. That's why the yellow arrow is over here. So now let's go to the next item on the stack trace, which is the invariant here. Underscore invariant tells us there was an invariant violation occur, which is unexpected, right? Apparently the one that's violated is, you can see the tag, how useful it is, right? It tells us consistent count that's actually being violated. Well, if you look at that, we know that names.count is the same as birthdays.count, right? We already saw that in the watch. What about the count for the birthday? If you only look at the count over here, it seems to be 0 over here, right? That's why this particular, you can see here, current account is simply 0, and then it's not equal to 1. So that's why at least we got this one is false. So we got an invariant violation. That's weird, because since remember what we were trying to do? We were trying to add a record into the empty birthday book. So that means the count should have been incremented, but it was not. So this one tells us actually we got some implementation error, even though we were trying to test for precondition violation, right? It's very normal. What you would think that the implementation was simply correct, but it turns out it was not. Why don't we go back here? Okay, hopefully you can see how I reasoned about the error over here, right? While trying to test for precondition violation, we encounter some unexpected invariant violation first. So that's why we're going to fix it first before we can go further. Let me go back to the birthday book. Apparently, you can see somehow after these two lines seems to be okay. They successfully added to the end of the array and linked list, but the count was not incremented. Well, see, count is actually an attribute. So that means we have to make sure we update it properly. So what I would do is I'm going to say count over here is assigned to count plus 1. Okay, so now hopefully you see why even though we didn't really get it right in the beginning, and then we run into some unexpected error, but using the debugger we were able to identify what the error is. It's a very important technique for you to pick up. Okay, hopefully my illustration makes sense to you. Okay, let's now compile. Okay, so now we wouldn't get into that trouble anymore, hopefully. And then we'll try run workbench system. Okay, and then we did I compile? Let's say compile over here, and then I would say run and run workbench system. Okay, we still get a class invariant violation. Ooh, let's see what happened. If I go back to run over here, and let's see what we get. So we look at the stack trace. We still get to execute this particular the test for precondition violation. And now you see we make some progress actually from the previous one, because this very first one, which used to trigger the invariant violation, has been fixed because we added count is assigned to count plus 1. And we do have a violation over here from this yellow arrow here, from the second call to the add. However, we were expecting a precondition violation, but what we got instead was a invariant violation. So that's not as expected. So there's still some bug in our system. So we're gonna fix it, right? So we're gonna go another time to debug. Okay, so that's about the add. So if we go to the add, so now this is not looking good. I tell you why. Remember the way we set it up. We said after adding this very first record into the birthday book, so now we got only one record, right? The record has Alan and also September 14th. And now when we try to add Alan again, apparently Alan already exists in the birthday book. So when we call add over here, okay, let's go into it. Okay, if we go to add over here, what we expect to happen is this particular precondition should have been violated. But what actually happened was, you can see the execution flow went all the way down to the all the way down to the end over here, right? You can see count over here is assigned to count plus 1. So that's not good, right? So that means somehow this precondition did not evaluate to be false. It did not evaluate to be false, actually. So that's something we wanted to debug further. Okay, that's why we went to this particular invariant here. And now the invariant violation was not surprising, because since we executed names.extend, names.force and birthdays.extend once more, so now you can see over here, if you look at the names over here, for example, if you look at the names, now the names has two elements there. You can see you got Alan and Alan. So apparently we got duplicate. The invariant itself is okay, actually. It's catching this bug. So somehow the precondition did not do its job over here to actually prevent. You can see the invariant violation should have occurred to prevent these extension from happening. So that's a problem. So let's see exactly how this occurred. So now this is a very normal procedure you have to follow. So we know that there's something wrong when we try to execute this. If you go back to here, let's say if you face the situation later when you are failing a particular test, I would suggest this is what you do. First of all, identify which test is failing. And we know that in this case, it is this test that's failing. And now which line is causing some unexpected error? It's really not the first call, we already fixed it. It's really the second call of the add that's happening error, right? Normally that it also got interrupted here. That's why it's the error. So now I would suggest, well, now you can see the breakpoints already here, right? Because when you are running the debugger, the breakpoints also show on the left. I would say, since we know there's something wrong here, we would like to launch the debugger again. However, next time we want to pause over here. Okay, so that's why I click on this to add a breakpoint here. And then when I try to relaunch the debugger again, rather than executing through, it's going to pause over here, so we can step into to see what's happening to that particular precondition that we expect to fail. Okay, so hopefully you can follow my thought here. Okay, so what I did already, make sure you do it as well, is by adding a breakpoint over here around the yellow arrow over here, right? So if you make sure you actually click on that, so it becomes red. So now let me stop the debugger over here. Okay, let me launch again, and this time I should really expect to pause over there. So if I say run again over here, you can see I do pause over here, right? So nothing has happened just yet. So now be careful. What you really want is to step into, not step over. If you say step over, the same violation is going to occur. I mean, the invariant violation is going to occur again. It's not going to help. So let me say step into. And okay, so the reason that you don't really see the add right away is because, so let me just go back to explain to you. If you see over here in the precondition test, in order to call this particular add, we have to sort out the evaluation for every argument value for sure. However, the second one is actually to create an anonymous object on the fly. So that's why it's showing you the creation procedure. We have no other option but to go over line by line. We cannot say step out in this case. Otherwise, it's gonna step out of the current add call actually. Okay. So let's go back to the top of the stack over here. So let's just have to let me just show you one way to speed up. Okay. You basically want to somehow go all the way to the end over here temporarily. Let me just put a breakpoint over here temporarily, right? And then I'll say run. Okay, so now I just go there, skip all the way through. Okay, just a little trick to show you. Okay, remember to remove it. Okay, I remove it already. So now let's say step one line at a time again. So now we are in the add. Okay, so now be very clear about what's going to happen, right? You shouldn't really lose the focus or picture over here. So what we're doing here, let's see the stack trace. We are now in the second call of the add, right? I'm seeing the second item from the stack trace, and now we are trying to add Alan into the birthday book where the name array already contains Alan. Okay, let me just show you here. The name already contains Alan. So if you see BB over here, that's the birthday book, and birthday book has the names, and also you can see here it contains Alan already, and we are adding Alan again, right? So that's why we're expecting some precondition violation to occur. Let's get it clear. So now when we get to that particular add over here, so now names that has name, so what we should expect to see should be true. Let me just verify once more for you. You can see names over here, the array does have Alan. It does, right? So now let me try that. If I say names dot has Alan, let me type actually name over here. Let me just be precise. So I'm just copying exactly what the precondition is saying. Name that has, right? It should be true. However, it is false, right? So now if I try to evaluate the whole precondition over here, it's going to be not false, which will be true. So that is why the precondition is supposed to be violated over here by evaluating to false, but it actually evaluated to true. So somehow the names does contain Alan, but the return name that has name over here is actually false. So there's something wrong over here, right? Something wrong about inquiring about the membership of the array. So the array seems to have Alan over here, and we are really passing another name over here, which is Alan indeed. So somehow the content is not being checked properly about the array. Okay, so hopefully you see what the issue is, right? So now let me ask you this. You know about how to solve this already, which we covered in the previous video, especially when we talk about arrays. Do you know what it is? If you know, then congratulations, you really pay attention to what I said. If you haven't, then I would say maybe try to pay closer attention next time. Okay, you did miss a very important point if you haven't got a clue about what to solve. The reason is, let me show you. Let's look at the names array over here. It seems like when you say names star has Alan, which seems to be existing, but it's actually telling you it's not there, right? So that's the problem. So now I want to show you that particular attribute over here, which is called object comparison. Hopefully that rings the bell. We said that in order to make sure when you inquire about membership, and you want to make sure you check membership against object equality. In that case, object comparison should be true. But at the moment, it seems to be just keep the default value false, right? So that means we should have set the object comparison flag of this particular names array to be true. That seems to be what we should have done. Okay, hopefully you can see the issue here. Okay, so now let's go back to, let me just stop here, and we now already see what the issue is. In order to make sure the names over here, the name at this point here always will compare objects rather than comparing references as in the default. We have to make sure maybe right in the beginning, go back to birthday book here. Right in the beginning, maybe right after the construction over here, we should have called names.compare objects. Okay, so I would say in principle, if you're creating any collection attributes, creating attributes using the collection type from IFO base, you should really think about maybe you want to say compare objects always, because most likely you will need that Boolean flag object comparison to be true, most likely. There might be other cases you may want it to be false, but you have to justify case by case. Okay, so the fix I would suggest over here would be names.compare objects. You can see it's quite a long process over here to find out this is what the issue is. But you can see along the way, we actually found different issues over there using debugger. Imagine that. Is it possible for you to find such issues and have such insight using console printout messages? I would say no. So that's why I really want to convince you to really use debugger and also breakpoints. That really is going to benefit you a lot. Okay. So I would suggest we not only do just for the names, or at least this can fix it for now, but why don't we do for birthday as well? There should be no reason we don't say we want to compare objects as well. Okay, compare objects. Okay, let me compile over here, and then let's run the workbench system. And this time, yes, indeed, right? So now you can see the precondition now is indeed being triggered as expected. Okay. Again, please make sure you really run through the process over here and make sure you really understand everything. Okay.